Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. So, back on July 24th, 2026, Anthropic completely shook things up. They dropped a brand new flagship model, Claude Opus 5. Anthropic is calling this a massive step change improvement over Opus 4.8. But what does that actually mean for you and your daily development workflows? Well, that is exactly what we're going to break down today. Let's take a really quick look at the roadmap for this briefing. We're going to cover 1. Meet Claude Opus 5. 2. Massive context and output. 3. Thinking and effort levels. 4. Pricing and availability. And 5. Breaking changes and migration. All right, Section 1. Meet Claude Opus 5, the new flagship from Anthropic. Right out of the gate, we have got 3 massive headline numbers that completely define this release. First up, a staggering 1 million token context window. Second, an astonishing 128,000 max output tokens. And third, and this is a real game changer, thinking is enabled by default. These specs are literally redefining what's possible, totally opening the door for those heavy-duty, data-intensive applications. Moving right into Section 2, massive context and output, expanding the model's working memory. Now, before we get completely lost in the sheer scale of these numbers, let's just ground ourselves for a second. What exactly is a context window? Well, it's essentially the model's working memory. It is the total amount of text that Claude can hold in its mind at any given time while you're interacting with it. We're talking about previous messages, all your documents, your system instructions, and yes, even the response it's actively building. It's basically the canvas that Claude works on. And with Claude Opus 5, that canvas is absolutely huge. Both the default and the maximum context window are set at exactly 1 million tokens. Just think about the practical impact of that kind of working memory for a second. We're not just talking about skimming a few long articles here. You can literally drop entire massive code bases into the prompt to hunt down some obscure architecture bug. You can process enterprise-scale document sets all at once. You could even run these incredibly long, complex agentic conversations over a period of weeks without the model ever losing the plot. It is an absolute game changer for heavy-duty analysis. But, having a massive input is really only half the equation, right? Because Opus 5 can ingest so much data, it desperately needs the runway to deliver a complete, thoughtful answer back to you. And that is where the 128,000 max output tokens come in. With that much runway, you can generate incredibly detailed technical manuals, spit out thousands of lines of refactored code, or summarize an entire library of legal contracts in just a single go.
Okay, Section 3, Thinking and Effort Levels. Steering the powerful Opus 5.
So Claude's thinking capability is essentially its extended reasoning mode. This is where the model actually pauses to work through a really complex problem step by step before it gives you a final answer. And the best part, with Claude Opus 5, this extended reasoning mode is active out of the box. You don't need to write up these super complex system prompts to coax it into thinking anymore. It just does it naturally. So how do you actually control it then? Well, effort is now your primary lever for steering Opus 5's behavior, and it comes with 5 distinct levels. You've got low for your standard everyday tasks, medium gives you a nice balanced approach, high is specifically for complex tasks, X-high really pushes into advanced reasoning territory, and finally you have max. Max is positioned specifically for capability critical work. Those super high-stakes situations where you absolutely need the ceiling of the model's intelligence and reasoning. Now, while you're steering the model, I do want to mention this really cool concurrent beta feature release. As a developer, you can now add or remove tools mid-conversation, right between turns. This flexibility is awesome because it preserves your prompt cache, which is going to save you both time and compute power. Just keep in mind, since it is a beta feature, you are going to need to include a specific beta header in your API request to actually unlock it. Let's jump into Section 4, Pricing and Availability. Where and how much? Okay, this is where things get really, really interesting. The pricing is $5 per million input tokens and $25 per million output tokens. Let that sink in for a second. Despite the huge 1 million token context window, the massively expanded output, and the default reasoning turned on, the pricing is completely unchanged from Claude Opus 4.8. You are getting this massive step change improvement in capability without paying a single cent more per token. No way, right? But it's true. And getting your hands on it is incredibly straightforward. Claude Opus 5 is actually available right now across a really diverse set of platforms. You can hit it directly through the Claude API, of course, or you can deploy it securely in enterprise environments using Amazon Bedrock, Google Cloud's Vertex AI, and Microsoft Foundry. All right, Section 5, Breaking Changes and Migration. The catch and the action required. Yep, watch out for the dreaded 400 error. Look, we have all been there, right? Waking up in a cold sweat to pager alerts because an API call in production just totally failed. If you don't migrate your settings correctly for Opus 5, a 400 error is exactly what you're going to see. And I really want to save you that headache. So let's break down exactly why that error happens now. If you want to explicitly disable that new default thinking mode we talked about, you can only do so when your effort level is set to low, medium, or high. But if your effort level is cranked up to X high or max, you absolutely cannot disable thinking. If you try to send an API call requesting max effort, but you have thinking turned off, the API is just going to return a 400 error outright. This is a strict breaking change from Opus 428, so you absolutely must audit your API calls right now.
And there is actually a second breaking change, and this one involves an older model, Claude Opus 4.7. Back in the day, if you requested fast speed and the system couldn't fulfill it, it would just gracefully fall back to standard speed. Well, that's no longer the case. Requests to Claude Opus 4.7 with the speed set to fast will now just return an immediate error outright. Fast mode has basically been completely ripped out of that model.
So what's the actionable solution here if you're stuck on Opus 4.7, but your application really relies on using fast mode? It's simple. You've got to migrate. You need to move your codebase up to Claude Opus 4.8. Or, honestly, better yet, just take the leap all the way to the new flagship Claude Opus 5 to keep all your fast mode capabilities completely intact. So, we've seen the unbelievable power of the 1 million token context window, and we've walked through the strict new effort level constraints. To make sure your integration goes off without a hitch, you should definitely visit claudemaster.net for a full step-by-step migration guide. But that leaves us with one final absolutely vital question to think about. As AI reasoning scales to this unprecedented new baseline, is your codebase truly ready for Claude Opus 5? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will catch you next time.